NBC10 at Issue starts now.
Circumcision is not often talked about, but the American Academy of Pediatrics says it's one of the most frequently performed procedures in the world. Now, one organization says it's time to rethink circumcision, calling it medically unnecessary. On its webpage, the American Academy of Pediatrics weighs in, writing, quote, after a comprehensive review of the scientific evidence, the health benefits of newborn male circumcision outweigh the risks, but the benefits are not great enough to recommend universal newborn circumcision. The group goes on to say, therefore, because the procedure is not essential to a child's current well-being, we recommend that the decision to circumcise is one best made by parents in consultation with their pediatrician. Joining me this morning are Georganne Chapin, the founder of the group Intact America. The group works to end what they call involuntary circumcision in America. And with her is Niki Sawyers, a mother from the Philadelphia area who calls herself a regret mom. She regrets the decision to have her son circumcised. We'll get to your story in just a moment. Thank you both for being here. Georganne, let's begin with you. Why did you start the organization?
Oh, thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. It's nice to meet you and nice to be on your show. I started Intact America with a group of other people who believe, as I do, that there are way too many reasons against taking a newborn baby and cutting off part of his body. We believe it's a violation of human rights. We know it's medically unnecessary. The American Academy of Pediatrics, in fact, has come out more recently with an even more clear statement that it's not medically necessary. And we think that baby boys have the same right to their whole body that everybody else does, baby girls. I'm an attorney. I have a long career in public health and health care, and I felt like this was a human rights issue whose time had come, and that's why I started Intact America.
And Niki, you have sort of an emotional story as it relates to your son. Tell us about it.
Absolutely, Rosemary. Well, the moment that circumcision was brought up was probably the worst moment that it could have been brought up to me, as my son was laid on my chest. Not once was it discussed during the entire prenatal care with my obstetrician. It was not brought up once. We had no discussion, no informed consent discussion.
Did you even think about it? I mean, pre-birth, was it even something that had crossed your mind, or where you were just taking the lead from your doctor?
Well, it did cross my mind, and immediately my instinct told me, no, that would hurt, no, it's not necessary, and it doesn't need to be done. And I went, and then I just kept on with it. So
you've just given birth, your son is laying on your chest, and this is the moment that you say your doctor, your care providers brought it up. He said to me, "You're circumcising, right?" And at that moment, I was dumbfounded. I was caught off guard. These were the first moments with my son. And it was a very precious moment, and those moments were taken away for him just coming out like that and having had no discussion prior. It threw me for a loop. So then what happened? So then I nodded my head, I looked at my partner, and he just looked away, and the doctor said, all right, well, Dr. such and such will be in tomorrow, and he did my son's, and he'll do great. He won't feel a thing. And I still didn't want it to be done. But the next morning, I was woken up around 7 o'clock by a different doctor standing over me with a clipboard and talking fast and saying, oh, it's better, he won't feel it, it'll be quick. And I was overwhelmed at that moment. I hadn't slept in 3 days. I was induced for high blood pressure. And I was overtaken, and I ended up signing consent form. Hadn't had a discussion about what the procedure entailed or anything. But you regret it because you say you believe your son suffered real trauma. Yes, he did suffer trauma. He was nursing wonderfully right after he was born, and the whole night, the next day when they took him away, when they brought him back, he was pale, his eyes were puffy, and he developed a hernia from screaming so hard, an umbilical hernia, and he let out a real strange squeal that I'd never heard before, and my heart sank, and I knew at that moment I failed my son.
You started out the show by saying, we don't talk about this. You know, people don't talk about circumcision, and we need to talk about it. This is the most commonly performed, completely medically unnecessary pediatric surgery in this country. The rest of the world, European countries, Asia, they don't do it to babies. So parents are really blindsided often. There are more and more parents, thanks to our organization, thanks to people like Niki who are speaking out, thanks to you for having this program. More people are becoming aware and are saying, that's not going to happen to me, or that happened to me once, but not again. But it is a very common story.
Yeah. Georganne, from your point of view, from what you said to us in the beginning of this interview and discussion, that for you it's really a human rights issue. It sounds like for Niki it's more of a trauma to her son issue. Is there any medical research to back up that there are long-term effects from having your son circumcised?
Yes, there are, and there more and more is coming out. But we've known for a long time. There are studies that are decades old that shows that circumcision causes terrible pain for babies. People who say babies don't feel pain, any mom knows a baby feels pain. There are recent studies, including earlier this year, that show that the effects of pain on a newborn can last for not just hours, but actually months and years.
You certainly have plenty of followers online, 50,000 people that are following you on Facebook. Right. But you also have some critics, too, who say that you're hijacking science and that you're a fringe group. How do you respond?
There is no science behind circumcision. The doctors who promoted it made claims that it prevented insanity, mental retardation, tuberculosis, hip dysplasia. Circumcision has had a long range of claims, medical circumcision, for it. All of them have been debunked. There is simply no science behind it. The most recent version of the journal Pediatrics, which is the official journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics, says very clearly that circumcision is a cultural. One of the members of the task force on circumcision says very clearly it's a cultural surgery. The medical reasons are not compelling. The science has died, if there never was any, but even the illusion of it has died, and it is simply an issue of treating babies as the full human beings with the full set of rights that they have.
Georganne and Niki, thank you both for sharing your insight. We appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Absolutely. We should mention the benefits of circumcision, according to WebMD, are a slightly lower risk of urinary tract infections in boys, lower risk of some sexually transmitted infections in men. Penile cancer, however, doctors say all of these problems are uncommon.